Coming out of this past week, we haven't seen too many notable things come out of this news cycle, but we have seen a few new interesting polls. So we're going to go over Kamala Harris's honeymoon phase and how she's doing in the polls and how well she's liked at this current moment in time and how she does paired up to Donald Trump in this coming election. So we're obviously going to start off with states that are now safe for either candidate, starting with the West Coast, with California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii being safe for Kamala Harris. While the leads vary from Biden, those are relatively safe for her this time around, as well as Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., Rhode Island, Massachusetts. And normally we would have thrown New Hampshire in the swing state column if it would have been Biden and Trump. But sadly, we have seen Harris pull a little bit higher in the polls than Joe Biden did. So that is no longer going to be considered a swing state, but a likely Democratic state, as well as Virginia. Don't have the polling showing for that, but it is still shifting a lot more in the left ever since Kamala Harris has taken over, as well as New Mexico and Colorado. Okay, now moving on, and the 2nd district of Nebraska, which will be a very much so a lean district, but not likely, as well as the 1st district of Maine and the state as a whole, but a lean state as a whole. Now moving on to the states for Donald Trump: Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Alaska, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska, except for the second district, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, South Carolina, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, and Iowa, and North Carolina, as it's polling around 8% for Trump. We're going to put that in the likely Republican spot, as well as Florida and Texas, very likely above the 7% threshold. And the 2nd district of Maine is a solid for Trump. This leaves us with our 6 most standard swing states that we're going to go over. So first off, we're going to start in the Sun Belt. We're going to start with Georgia, where Trump has still been polling ahead of Kamala Harris, just about the same as Biden, about 5 points consistently as we go down. So Trump has a very high likelihood of winning Georgia this time around by a lean margin. Moving on to Arizona, once again, Trump has still been polling ahead of Harris in all of the most recent polls ever since Biden has dropped out, by anywhere from about 5 points, just about the same as he was doing against Biden. Moving on to Nevada in the Sun Belt. This one is about the same, with Trump beating Harris in the most recent polling. And then that was the only one since Biden has dropped out, but before they were also doing polling that showed Trump ahead by 10 points and so on. So that will fall in, as we saw, 2 points. We're going to give the average of about 5, so that is a lean Republican state for Trump this time around. Sorry. Now, moving on to the blue wall. As you can see, Trump would be at 268 in this point in the election, so it really comes down to these 3 states. Trump is able to get any of these, and that locks down the election for him, and it leaves Kamala Harris laughing in the background. But if Kamala Harris can successfully lock down the entire blue wall, that gives her the election by 2 electoral college votes. So, we are going to start off in Wisconsin. Moving from Wisconsin, we can see Trump has been even with her in this poll, even with her in this one. He beat her in this one by 1. Going down, Harris beat him in these 2 by 1. It looks like it's extremely tight. The last time that Trump beat her in the polls very soundly was here, and it was by 1. So that puts Wisconsin in the tilt for Republicans. It's been even the whole way across the board for him and Kamala, but it has been just slightly over, so that puts it in the tilt for Donald Trump. Moving on to Michigan, this one isn't the same. Trump has been polling a little bit higher, 3 points in this one, 3 points in this one, and a tie here, a tie there, but Trump wins there. So anytime that Kamala has an edge, it only results in a tie. But every time that Trump has the edge, it results in about a 2-point or a 1-point or a 3-point victory. So that would put Michigan as well in the tilt. Not enough to give it a lean, but in the tilt category. Now what's left is Pennsylvania. This could really depend on who the running mate is for VP, but as it stands right now, not looking as good for Donald Trump. There was a tie as well as Harris winning one. Now we go back a little bit further. Trump did beat her by about 4 points. And then it was an even tie, but then Harris did beat Trump by about 2 points. Now we go back a little bit further where Trump did beat her by about 2 points along the way, going down. And then as we get further down to where he was still running against Biden, it was an even bigger lead between him and Harris. So that, once again, is not enough to put it in the likely, but still a tilt with all the winning that Harris has been doing. Now, in my opinion, as if the election were to be held today, I think this is very likely what the map would be. I would really like to see Trump do a lot of campaigning in Virginia and Minnesota and New Mexico and possibly New Hampshire as well. Those could very easily be swing states this time around. But I really don't think that Trump needs to be spending time in North Carolina and things like that. Now, on the flip side, Kamala Harris needs to be spending a lot of time in either Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, or the Blue Wall. She doesn't win without any of those right there. But as we can see, if she gets Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, that leaves her with only needing one of the Blue Wall. Wisconsin wouldn't do it, but she could get the 2nd District of Maine or another district of Nebraska, or she could get Michigan or Pennsylvania. Let's say Trump continues on with the Sun Belt, giving those back to him. That would leave her needing to get the Blue Wall. Now, she would need to get all of the Blue Wall to barely come out with a 270 or 268 win. Once again, just barely over the edge. So Kamala Harris's path to victory is so much stark and different than Trump's is. She has to get all of either, including one of the Blue Wall if she goes the Sun Belt direction. It's going to be a very close race if the election were to be held today, but I think that this is going to be a very, very close map of what it's going to look like in 2024 on election day. Let me know what you think and if Kamala Harris is still in her honeymoon phase or not.